Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has joined other citizens in the country to mourn the death of the 3 Israeli hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli soldiers in Gaza Strip on Friday. Benjamin Netanyahu's condolence message is issued at a moment hundreds of people gathered at front of the Israeli General Staff Building and Ministry of Defense to protest the killing of the hostages by armed troops. A large crowd of people also protest in Tel Aviv demanding Netanyahu to stop the war in Gaza and negotiate with Hamas to release the hostages. Israel Defense Forces (IDF) said, during combat in Shejaya, the IDF mistakenly identified 3 Israeli hostages as a threat and as a result, fired toward them and the hostages were killed. Their bodies were transferred to Israeli territory for examination where it was confirmed that there were 3 Israeli hostages and were identified. Yotam Hem, who was kidnapped from Kibbutz Kfar Aza by the Hamas terrorist organization on October 7. Sema Talalka, who was kidnapped from Kibbutz Ne'em by the Hamas terrorist organization on October 7. The 3rd hostage's family has been notified and requested that his name will not be broadcasted. IDF and Israel police representatives have notified all of the families. The IDF began reviewing the incident immediately. The IDF emphasizes that this is an active combat zone in which ongoing fighting over the last few days has occurred. Immediate lessons from the event have been learned, which have been passed on to all IDF troops in the field. The IDF expresses deep remorse over the tragic incident and sends the families its heartfelt condolences. Our national mission is to locate the missing and return all the hostages home. The name of the 3rd hostage mistakenly killed during the incident was approved for publication by his family. Alon Shamri, kidnapped from Kibbutz Kfar Aza by the Hamas terrorist organization on October 7. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu consoled the bereaved families and said in quotes, "Together with the entire people of Israel, I bow my head in deep sorrow and mourn the death of 3 of our hostages, including Yotam Hem and Sema Talalka. This is an unbearable tragedy and all of Israel is grieving their loss this evening. My heart goes out to the bereaved families at this difficult time. I strengthen our courageous soldiers engaged in the sacred mission of bringing home our hostages, while risking their lives in doing so. Today, on this painful evening, we will dress our wounds, learn the lessons and continue the most important effort of bringing all the hostages home." Office of Israeli Prime Minister reported series of meetings the Prime Minister held during week concerning the possible release of the hostages held by Hamas. The reports are presented below. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on Thursday at the Kaya in Tel Aviv, met with International Committee of the Red Cross President Regional Spoljarik. At the start of the meeting, the Prime Minister described to the ICRC President the atrocities carried out by Hamas ISIS, including the murder of children and infants, and the abuse and brutal rapes of women. Prime Minister Netanyahu also described the inhuman conditions in which Hamas is holding the hostages and the prevention of humanitarian assistance for them. The Prime Minister presented the ICRC President with a full package of vital medicines and demanded that the ICRC fulfill its role and deliver it to the hostages in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu's statement to ICRC President Spoljarik reads, "They are doing something that is quite incredible. They've taken children, babies, women, old people, Holocaust survivors, festival participants. And after they shot hundreds, murdered over 1,200 people, they take these people and they take them as hostages. Where's that head of? The only difference from our point of view is not the intent, but the capability. If they had the capability, they would have killed every last one of us. They didn't, because we fought back, sometimes with incredible odds. People, mothers, fought with fingernails. There's a difference between the deliberate and systematic murder, maiming and menacing of civilians, which is what terrorism is, and the unintended consequences, unintended casualties that accompany any warfare. This is the entire difference. I want to express my gratitude for your help in securing the release of the hostages, but at the same time, some of the statements that have come out from your organization seem to not make the distinction that I've just made. My goal, as you know in our conversations, is to see how we can help the remaining hostages. You have every avenue, every right and every expectation to place public pressure on Hamas. Participating in the meeting were head of the National Public Diplomacy Directorate, Moshik Aviv, the Prime Minister's Military Secretary Major General Avi Gil, Coordinator for the Hostages and Missing Brigadier General Gal Hersh, the Prime Minister's Foreign Policy Advisor, Ofi Fok, and Israeli Ambassador to the UN and international organizations in Geneva Merav Ilon Shaha. Statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu following his meeting with U.S. National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. I met today with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. I greatly appreciate the U.S. support for Israel in the supply of munitions for the IDF, in blocking the attempts at the UN to stop the fighting, and in the assistance in returning our hostages. I would like to clarify, the return of our hostages is a main goal. We are not relenting in our efforts even for a moment, even at this moment. I told our American friends, our heroic soldiers have not fallen in vain. Out of the deep pen of their having fallen, we are more determined than ever to continue fighting until Hamas is eliminated, until absolute victory. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the members of the War Cabinet, on Thursday, at the Kaya in Tel Aviv, met with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. The Prime Minister and the U.S. National Security Advisor emphasized their commitment to bring about the release of all the hostages remaining in Gaza. At the start of the meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked U.S. National Security Advisor Sullivan for the support of the U.S. in the fight against the Hamas terrorist organization. The sides discussed the continuation of the war until victory and the achieving of the common goals, first and foremost the elimination of Hamas, the release of the hostages, dismantling Hamas's military capabilities, and the end of its rule in Gaza. The two sides reiterated their commitment to bring about the release of all of the hostages remaining in Gaza, which include American citizens. Parallel to achieving these goals, the sides discussed the continuation of humanitarian assistance to the non-combatant population. Also discussed were the threats by Hezbollah from the north, those of the Houthis from the south, and ways to meet these challenges, which, together with Hamas, constitute Iran's axis of evil. Prime Minister Netanyahu reiterated that Israel will not allow Iran to achieve nuclear weapons. Participating for the Israeli side were Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Minister Benny Gantz, MK Aryeh Deri, National Security Council Director Tzachi Hanegbi, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff Tzachi Breverman, Cabinet Secretary Yossi Fuchs, IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, the Prime Minister's Military Secretary, Major General Avi Gil, the Prime Minister's Foreign Policy Advisor, Ofi Fok, and Israel Ambassador to the U.S. Mike Herzog. Participants for the American side included Special U.S. Presidential Envoy to the Middle East Brett McGurk, Special Envoy for Humanitarian Affairs David Satterfield, and the Deputy U.S. Ambassador to Israel.